G'day there, welcome to Faith, Culture, Politics in Australia with Mark, and today I'm going to be catching up with some guests for running as candidates for the Adelaide Hills Council and Mount Barker Council. And just before we get started, obviously this discussion, the Mount Barker and Adelaide Hills Council South Australia candidate discussion is authorised on my platform, and the candidates' authorisations are listed as below. This information will also be uploaded to the show notes once uploaded to various platforms. So those cover the authorisations there. So just giving people a bit of an update around why these elections are being held. So the election in Adelaide Hills and Mount Barker councils in South Australia occurring outside the regular election cycle are supplementary elections held to fill councillor vacancies. These vacancies were triggered by resignations earlier in 2025, necessitating elections to ensure full representation on the councils, specifically Adelaide Hills Council, in holding supplementary elections for its Ranges Ward and Valleys Ward to replace councillors Melanie Selwood, Pauline Gill and Louise Pascal, who resigned. 6 candidates are standing for each ward. Mount Barker District Council is conducting a supplementary election for its South Ward to fill the vacancy left by Narelle Hardingham's resignation. 3 candidates are in the running for this seat. Supplementary elections as defined by the Local Government Elections Act 1999 are conducted when a councillor's position becomes vacant due to reasons such as resignation, death or other circumstances, and there is more than 12 months remaining before the next periodic council election scheduled for November 2026. These elections ensure councils remain fully functional and representative. Voting for these elections is by postal ballot, with ballot papers delivered between August 26 and September 1, 2025, and must be returned by 12 p.m. on September 22, 2025. So let's find out a little bit about the candidates that will be joining me today. So one of them is Martin. Just bring that up to stage. So Martin Bray, and is running in Valley Wards. And I just need to be clear as well that the candidates I'm speaking to today, I was contacted by the Adelaide Hills Council Action Group and put in contact for the candidates running. If any other candidate would like to reach out to my platform, I will happily provide the opportunity for them to be able to speak into anything that they'd like to during the time before the candidacy runs out. So Martin's commitments is committed to focus on core services rates capped at CPI, balanced budget, debt reduction, cost neutral sustainability programs, restoring Australia Day, removing identity politics and restrained development. Richard Gladigau, time to put ratepayers first, reduce rates, reduce debt. We'll cover those figures in a bit more detail when we're talking. Reprioritise net zero funding, fix the basics, potholes, provide footpaths, focus on services to ratepayers, cut red and green tape, restore council to support for Australia Day, strong leadership, community service, and that's Richard Gladigau for Valleys Ward. We also have Mark Cuthbertson, so prioritise ratepayer services, rates capped at CPI or less, balanced budget, debt reduction, cost neutral sustainability, restoring Australia Day, removing identity politics, honest representation, and that is in Ranges Ward there for Mark. And then in the Mount Barker Council, we have Darren Kelly, lower rates in this cost of living crisis, keep rates under control, tackle traffic and parking, better roads and footpaths, protect our rural character. So that's all the candidates there, and I'm going to welcome them all onto stage now to welcome there everybody. Nice to have you on board here and to hear some of your thoughts about why you're running as a candidate and why you see some of these changes in your flyers need to be enacted. So welcome.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Excellent. So, Mark, I guess you're sort of next to me on the screen there. I just thought I might check check with you then. Have you been politically motivated in the past? Have you thought about this in the past, or what's made you consider running for council? Have you thought about it before? Is this a first?
No, this is the first for me. I was particularly upset about 5 years ago and started to look at the council's financials, and I've never thought of going on council before. So it was over a period of time. I was watching and reading, and only come up until recently. I try to encourage friends to stand on council, but I was the last man standing. So my motivation is purely to start correcting some of these errors that I can see.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. A lot of people jump on. If you see something wrong, you've got to jump in and fix it. Richard, I wonder if I can jump across to you now. Have you been politically motivated yourself? Is this a first for you? What's your thoughts in jumping forward as a candidate?
Yes, so thanks, Mark. No, this is a first for me. I always said I never would, but my grandfather stood on the Mount Barker Council for 40 years, so I always figured I'd never have to be on council. But having been a long-term resident, as in all my life, so nearly 60 years in the Adelaide Hills around Mount Torrens, my family for about 176 years have been in the same area. So I've just seen the changes that are happening in council and in the area that I've started to become more and more concerned over where it was headed. And we continually see the council in the media for the wrong reasons, not the right reasons, the infighting, etc., that's been happening, and the increase in rates, etc. So I finally decided that, yes, I'll put my hand up and have a go, because if you don't, there's no point complaining. As my father said, no point complaining if you're not willing to have a crack. So I decided, yeah, it's time to put my hand up and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, sounds great. And Martin, how about yourself? Have you obviously yourself got a history in regards to council and so forth?
Yeah, I was a councillor in the city of Onkaparinga for 3 terms, and during those 3 terms, I guess I saw a council that, in a financial sense, was struggling in other ways, but I also was there long enough to see a very significant turnaround. So I've seen what a good council looks like. As with Adelaide Hills, I guess I'm well aware that the rates are fairly high. There's a deficit and climbing debt, but things I'm seeing the council doing are not things I'd associate with a council that's trying to get on top of its financial issues.
Yeah, fair enough. And I guess with your history and knowledge there from Onkaparinga, you know, like you say, you know what a good council, a well-run council looks like. So decide to put your hat in the ring. That's good to hear. And Darren Kelly, you're obviously Mount Barker Council, so not Adelaide Hills Council, and there's that's a position you're running in. And any motivations from you previously, politically motivated at all, or was this just same as many of the others, seeing something wrong and wanted to do something about it?
Yeah, it's pretty much the latter. I've never been politically active or in any sort of official role. I'm actually a small business operator. And my business is in the township of Hahndorf. So I'm a long-term resident and a long-term part of the community. I've just kept my head down working, but look, you just see things happen and you feel like, you know, there's we can do better. And I think, you know, there's things that need to be addressed. So that's been my motivation for running.
Yeah, good to hear. Now, look, I've like other media, I've obviously been keeping in touch of, you know, stories coming out of the Adelaide Hills and so forth, and some polarising topics in regards to, you know, Australia Day, you know, this whole net zero and costing in regards to how much is being spent by councils in this pursuit of net zero, as well as state and federal. So there's been some polarising topics, obviously. Now, some of those are mentioned in some of your flyers from all of you. So you all seem to have a very similar kind of stance on many of the issues being raised. So it kind of like gets me thinking about we talk a lot, and we know this is the case, that a lot of councils around the state or even the country have candidates or sitting members that are very much party affiliated. So whether it be Labor or the Greens or whoever, what is your thoughts in regards to these political party affiliations in council, which then also risks pushing in the direction towards sort of political motivation? Mark, have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I'm a member of the Liberal Party. However, I believe that the council should not be focused on state politics, on federal politics or international politics. They should be purely focused on the issues that are right in front of us, our roads, rates and rubbish, and getting our finances in order. A Liberal, any party affiliation should be kept out of council business. We're trying to fix our community up and our district up, and that should be our main focus.
Yeah, and it's obviously tricky. I mean, being able to disclose that information that you do have party affiliation, but then also saying that it shouldn't come into play in any sort of policies and decision making going forward. What about yourself, Richard?
Yeah, I'm not actually affiliated with any political party at all, but we are seeing people who haven't been able to get into state or federal politics seem to use local government as being their stepping stone into becoming better known, and there is a fair few of them that have been ex-political staffers as well, so they've got that bit of background. And that's a concern, and similar to what Mark says, is these people are coming in here with an agenda that they want to push, and councils are about their local community, and they're stepping into a political arena that, to me, they shouldn't really be so involved in. It's about looking after the local community, and not thinking that we can bring on necessarily other green agendas, etc. That really what real value will they be back to most ratepayers? So a council that's focusing on a net zero outcome is basically using my rate-paying money to achieve their net zero goal. Me as a ratepayer actually isn't going to have basically any real advantage out of that. So what am I getting from that spend, apart from them feeling happy about what they've done?
Yep. Okay. Martin, how about yourself in regards to that, the party affiliation topic?
No, I don't have any party affiliation. And on the connection between party affiliation and net zero activism, if I go back to my time at Onkaparinga, we were interested in improving sustainability options, but only if it saved council money or cost the same. We certainly didn't have a policy of spending more on net zero initiatives. And I take the view that people are already spending a lot more. Things are legislated at federal level and are organised at state level, and that's costing us now. So council should stay out of that and just stick to its local area business.
Yeah, sounds about right. And yourself, Darren?
Yeah, I'm very much in agreement there. I mean, yeah, we have net zero levies essentially built into our energy costs, and so for the council to be spending ratepayer money to let's say roll out EVs in their fleet is an unnecessary cost as far as I'm concerned. And I think there are far more important things they should be spending money on. So it's more of a prioritization of the funds that are available and making sure they're going to services, infrastructure, and things the actual residents need. Yeah, so I think it's too easy for agendas to be pushed. Yeah, so I think what I hope to bring is a bit of balance back into the council. But on the formal question you're asking about political affiliations, yeah. So look, mine's a little bit. I have been a member of One Nation, and that's was disclosed on the Electoral Commission application or nomination, because they request any affiliations within 12 months need to be disclosed. But I'm not currently affiliated, so I am independent. I don't agree with everything One Nation put forward, but certainly a lot of their stuff, which is involving reducing the cost of living and just sensible policies, I do support. So yeah, but essentially I'm independent platform, independent, yeah, I think there's a bit of transparency issue with that process that we've sort of tripped over. One of my competitors ran in the Jackie Lambie party just some months ago in the federal election, yet has been able to skate through saying she's unaffiliated, which, apparently the Act itself doesn't require disclosure of parties which aren't registered within South Australia, which leaves a pretty big loophole there for candidates to claim they're unaffiliated when indeed they actually are. So yeah, there's a bit of a fairness issue that really should be addressed at some point.
Yeah, and I guess there's an opportunity, I guess, if the right people are in council and put some motions forward, or whether it needs to be done at a state level, to have that reviewed about that disclosure, even if it's another state-based party, I guess. So I guess one of the big things I've covered over the years, over the last 12, 18 months or so, is also the impact of, I guess, the influence of the local government association, which is obviously the peak body for councils, all the councils around South Australia. Now, is there, for you guys, and the question being is that, do you see that you're able to, if or current councillors, or if you happen to be elected, keeping that separation between, because I believe the local government association has obviously all the legal firms working for them. They put a lot of policy together. From what I've observed, there seems to be quite a bit of influence from the LGA into the local councils. Do you believe that there can be that separation from what's actually best for the people on the ground in the community from a councillor's point of view, or do you see there's undue influence from the peak body, which is a local government association? Mark, what's your thoughts on that? If you haven't had too much thought on it, it's okay, we can skip on.
Obviously, the main focus of anybody of the council should be on the ratepayers, and they're the ones that actually pay the bills. And they're the ones that live in the area, and so all decision making should be focused back on them, not on outside bodies or whatever else. It's mainly what the ratepayers want should be the main focus of council.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Richard, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mark, I haven't had a lot to do with that topic at all, but I do get concerned when bodies decide they've got to have a blanket covering across a whole region or a state or whatever, and have that influence. And I think if we actually have councils, as we do, then they should be able to govern. I mean, there's state laws they need to abide by, but they should be able to govern that suits their own regions. They shouldn't be dictated to by outside influence.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that, Martin? You've obviously had quite a big involvement in Onkaparinga. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's different aspects. Local Government Association has had some role in organising financing for local councils at hopefully better rates. On the negative side, when we had the statewide debates on rate capping, the Local Government Association went hard opposing rate capping. So in a sense, the Local Government Association was advertising on behalf of the actual council organisations themselves rather than the ratepayers. And I felt that was a pretty disingenuous campaign by the LGA, because the rate capping proposal back then was not a blanket proposal. It was a proposal where councils had to stick to CPI, but if they needed to go above that, the proposal was authorisation from the State Auditor General could be a mechanism to allow increases above that should it be essential. So, you know, I didn't think that that should have been opposed by the LGA if it was acting in the interests of the ratepayers rather than the organisation itself.
Yeah. So a bit of positive, bit of negative there. Over at yourself, Darren, have you had any views on that?
Well, look, I don't have any experience with councils and how the influence of the LGA works, but it's not hard to see that it's there. We've got councils all across the region all enacting the same policies or very similar. So there seems to be some influence coming from there. You know, I certainly don't believe that is the best outcome for the ratepayers. I think councils need autonomy to make the decisions that are best for their region and the needs of their constituents, the services, the infrastructure, and having policies pushed down from on high works against that directly. Yeah, fair enough. And so I guess jumping into some policies or your reasons for the wards. Now, Mark, you're the only one running in your current ward there in Rangers Ward, and it was about three candidates are running in that seat. Is that the right one? Is that yours?
No, there's six candidates.
Six in that one, right? Yep, that's in. Yep, right, okay.
In my ward. So yes, I believe that you know, I want to represent the whole of the ward across the thing. Plus, I want to represent those that are all across the Adelaide Hills Council, because I'm seeing common people, common thought that's coming through across the whole. People are concerned about their financial issues. People are concerned about the debt issues that the council's got, you know, and the way it's significantly risen over the last few years. And people don't believe that they're getting their basic maintenance on their roads. So yes, they're predominantly the things I'm hearing as I go around the traps.
Yeah, so you know, obviously you're acting on conversations that you're having with people within your community. What and obviously those are the types of things they're hearing. So what do you feel's not happening then with council? What do you feel is sort of undermining that ability for council to be able to sort of move forward in a positive light to represent I guess the ratepayers in the best way possible?
I don't believe that people in the ratepayers are being listened to, and I believe that that people need to listen to what the ratepayers are actually saying and what their main concerns are. And there's a lot of concerns that are just not being over, and the transparency. People should believe that the council should be more transparent in what they put out there for the public to see. And, you know, and so the people in the general ratepayers are aware of what the situation is. You know, the debt situation is quite a concern. But if, you know, it's not broadly, you know, then people know about it in general terms, but in specific terms, we're not being told that type of information, along with other information as well that we need to go. You know, the increase in rates. Well, you know, that's well above CPI. So, you know, people need to be informed of why they made those, you know, be transparent about why those decisions were made, and let the public know out there in the marketplace.
So it sounds like transparency and accountability is a big topic there. Yeah. So you're one of the six candidates running, and there's only one spot, I believe, in your ward.
Yes,
Yeah,
there is.
Yep. Yep, and
Yes.
Richard and Martin, I believe there's 2 spots of in your ward, which is Valley Ward, but still 6 candidates. So you're 2 out of the 6 candidates there. So, Richard, what about yourself? Sort of similar question to Mark in regards to, obviously the key things that you're running for, that you see wrong, that you'd like to see recovered and fixed.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Look, it's the more now that I put my hand up for the role, it's quite interesting how many people will now come and speak to you about their concerns about council, and people aren't so much, they're not interested in all the green issues and the net zeros, etc. What they're worried about is that they don't even have a paved footpath in the main street. They've got potholes that aren't getting repaired, or roads aren't getting maintained enough. And I've lived on a dirt road most of my life, so I know what bad roads are like. So people seem to have an issue over the core services that just aren't really getting delivered, and yet seeing expenditure in other areas that they ask, well, why? Why have they gone and done that? And it seems to be, and similar to as Mark has said, is that I'm not really sure the councillors are listening to what the ratepayers are really wanting. And having been to an information night just the other night, I pretty much saw it firsthand of how it felt to see someone present to some council members, and it was pretty flippant, as would be how I'd look at it. It's as what they got in return. So that's where the one thing in the hills, and especially in the last 5 years, I've seen there's been a huge growth in what our capital values are on our properties, as it has probably around most of Australia, but certainly here in the hills, it's a place where people will travel to. We're a peri-urban area, and that's certainly pushed the values up of our properties, which has also made, I've seen mine go from 600,000 to 900,000 NCV within, I think, about 3-4 years. So you see that and you go, okay, the council's actually getting a kickback from that happening in the regards to rates. So there should be a bit of more management in that area to say, we're seeing that we don't need to raise rates. In fact, we should be able to keep them very steady because the capital value is actually what's bringing in the money quite quickly. So, but then it's going, right, what are we actually delivering with all this extra money? And when we're seeing the debt level having risen from nearly 30 million in 2020 to predicted about 43 million in 2028, that's a massive increase, and somehow that has to be reeled back in again, and someone has to pay for it. And there's only 42,000 ratepayers in the Adelaide Hills Council, and the council even says that in their own strategic plan that there will be very little growth in number of residents. We're not like a Mount Barker with a huge influx of new people coming in. We won't have that in the Adelaide Hills. So somehow that debt has to be managed. And my real concerns is just how. So what's going to miss out next time if they're going to try and bring that debt back, and to be saving $1 million a year, it's going to take 45 years to bring that debt back. So this has to be looked at now and started to manage already. We can't keep spending like we're spending. So where are we spending, and where are we getting wastage in where they're investing in? So, and like I said at the start, ratepayers just want the core services done. They want to see that the roads are maintained. They want to see that they've got a decent footpath, that the elderly or young families can at least wheel a pram up a main street without getting stuck in the gravel or potholes. And I shouldn't have to live on a road where at our other property where people are just about driving up the side of the road to get around the potholes because they are that bad. You can't drive through them anymore. So it's the core services that need to be looked at and maintained, and then what becomes outside of that can then be discussed. But so that was sort of my basis of where I am, and obviously I think we've all been the same thing with Australia Day. Is there seems to be a lot of community support that council should have some Australia Day celebrations on Australia Day. It shouldn't be the day before or 2 days after. It's the one national day that we have, and there seems to be a lot of residents that actually support that to be there, and for the council to go completely against that because of some political agenda is pretty disappointing.
Yeah, and I covered that at quite a bit of length as well in regards to the influence on Australia Day, and people, residents, everyday residents, been canvassed about their views, and a lot of them weren't happy about the decision being made. So I did cover that a little bit. So Martin, with your background then as well, I mean, you've been through 12 odd years of almost restructuring a council with Onkaparinga. So fiscal policy, being fiscally responsible and all that is quite important. I guess that's something that you'd be looking to try and improve when you jump in, and focusing on some key issues there.
Yeah, Onkaparinga basically went from unsustainable, there's no question about that, to a proper plan to get things back on track. Looking at the financial position of Adelaide Hills Council and looking at the things the council's doing at the moment, they just don't make sense. The council is not behaving like a council that needs to get itself eventually back into the black. I've been slowly going through some of the different plans and policies of the council and looking at the way they've been implemented and looking at some of the staffing behind them. And there seems to be a lot of room to focus a bit better on legislated core business and back away from areas that are not legislated for local government to deal with.
Yeah, it's a key thing, isn't it? It seems like councils, have stepped into fields that shouldn't really be, related to council as well. So, Darren, your thoughts are obviously being the only, candidate running for the Mount Barker Council. Sort of similar question there about, what you see fundamentally wrong currently, and sort of things that you'd like to see improve as you sort of if you happen to get in there.
Okay. Yeah, so one thing that came very clear from the door knocking I did during the campaign was Mount Barker residents are very much aware that their rates are very high, and comparatively, speaking, people in the eastern suburbs of Adelaide, your Burnsides, your Unleys, people who have properties of much higher capital value are paying lower rates, and they're kind of scratching their head thinking, well, what are we getting for these? We're not getting any extra services. We get our bins emptied and for very minimal else. So I mean, that is a clear issue for the residents. Now, look, Mount Barker is a unique problem. Let's say Mount Barker has been designated as a growth zone by the state government, and in the Greater Adelaide regional plan, I think it is. It's only 20% through its forecast growth. So this is just the start of the problem. There's major infrastructure requirements required to build out the region. And I guess perhaps that's what's feeding into the rates, the infrastructure required to build that out. Is it fair that these are borne by the existing ratepayers? Look, I would actually say not. I think the state government has made the decision to designate that as a growth zone, yet it appears to be very little funding coming from that direction to help provide the necessary infrastructure. Look, and on top of that, then there's the wastewater management, which the council actually manages. Let's call it in-house. I think it is outsourced through to a division of the council, but it's essentially in-house. Paid for by ratepayers rather than SA Water, and that's another massive cost. When you look at the pie chart of where the money goes, it's a significant portion, something close to 50% goes in that direction. So yeah, look, Mount Barker has some challenges. Now I'm not going to sit here today having access to all the figures and everything to pass judgments, but I can certainly see that there's real concern in the community, and I think there's room for improvement. Even if that's advocating the state government to take their share of the necessary infrastructure costs. But it's a problem that's only going to get worse. Look, one of my goals will be to try and address that as best as one councillor can. And closer to home, we've got Hahndorf, which is a thriving sort of tourist town, which has been crying out for parking for decades. So there's issues like that need to be addressed as well. And so it's getting some action on the things that really matter for the residents, sort of making progress on the footpaths and the roads and the potholes, as others have mentioned as well.
Fair enough. And looks like Martin's just dropped off, and we'll see you. He'll probably come back on very shortly. But just wanted to flash up, obviously, because it talks into Richard. Your flyer put this together pretty well. You've got some figures there where you're mentioning, reduce the debt. It was 12.8 million in 2020, and it's forecast to hit 45 million by 2029. And obviously, there's interest on top of that as well. So, I mean, that seems to be a bit of an issue for many of the councils. Would I be correct in saying that in Mount Barker, obviously, Darren, you've mentioned a similar sort of thing. Obviously, that's talking Adelaide Hills, but is that sort of a concern?
Yeah, sorry, Mark, you're directing that at me.
We're just saying, like, obviously that's covering Adelaide Hills Council there, but is that sort of a similar sort of story with Mount Barker?
Yeah, I believe it is. Yes. Yeah.
So look, and so these are the one of the key things, obviously, and obviously the council's building up debt, and then there's obviously interest payments on that debt, and a lot of feedback coming back is that a lot of it is around this push towards, and just to be clear, I think most people believe that we should be good stewards of the land. We need to be sort of stewards of the environment, look after the environment, and so forth. But there's a lot of debate happening at a state and federal level, including the local government level, in regards to the overburdensome cost of this transition to net zero and renewables. Is it, from some of the flyers there, clearly that's an issue for many of you as well, is that transition, looking at that responsible transition. So Mark, have you got any sort of additional thoughts and input in regards to that?
Yeah, let's just have a look at that debt issue. In 2020, or going by the audited financials, and they're the best one to look at, 12.731 million. Then it went down to 2021, 10.948. Then it went to, in 2022, 14.781. Then it went to 14.951. Then look, it leapt up in 2024 to 22.479 million. That's an astronomical lift in just 1 year. Then you go forward to look at what it's going to, 43.8. So it's moved from 12.731 million and it's going up to 43.8 million. Now we've only got a limited number of ratepayers, and that must be repaid. And the money that we're borrowing, is, if it's for the wrong purpose, then it should be addressed. It should be addressed very quickly. So yes, I'm concerned about those rising debt levels there, and that the money should be spent on the right purposes.
So how about you, Richard? Is it transition at all costs, regardless, or should councils be much more responsible in regards to, addressing this perceived man-made global warming situation and net zero and this renewable shift?
Yes, it can.
Yeah. Look, having having been the national or the president of Australian Dairy Farmers, this is certainly an issue that comes across across the table on the whole net zero and global warming, etc., and the focus that comes back at farmers, which is usually with the easy targets. And as I said to someone yesterday, when you consider, the people will say, well, agriculture or cattle are 10% of the world's emissions, but they forget the sequestration that happens of how the system works of cows eating a cellulose type product. It's going through a system, it's producing milk or meat, etc. It's going out the back end as manure or urine. It's going back into the soils, and farmers are probably the best people when it comes to looking after their soils and the carbon that is locked up in that soil, etc., from all that happening. And so the process continues and the way it goes. But they forget the sequestration part. They only keep going on the emitting part. And livestock are not the issue for CO2 emissions. And as I said to the person yesterday, just get on flight radar and see how many planes are in the air, or get on the one that shows how many ships are floating around the world and tell me which one is the one that's actually polluting and causing the issue. So this is where I get very, and I will say, look, I believe that we all have a duty to look after the world, but let's not get carried away in how we're doing it and pointing the finger and saying that, putting the tinfoil hats on and saying that the world is, it's coming, the sky's falling. Our farming practices in this country are well renowned and best practice of how we do manage the land. And as a farmer and a small business owner, it's not in my best. It's not going to help my business if I destroy what I actually am using to produce an income. So why would I make it worse? My job is to actually make it better and produce as much as I can out of it in a sustainable manner. And that's exactly what we do. So I get very frustrated when I hear that we need to put, you've only got to go over the hill from where I am at Palmer and see the great big solar panel sitting out there in some fantastic country and go, is that really helping? Is that really a benefit? I'm not a big wind tower person. I think that they're pretty much a waste of breath. And if they were so good, we'd see them along the Mount Lofty Ranges or along the coastline along Adelaide. But obviously that would be where the city people would see them. So, and they don't want that. They want the country people to be looking at it, doing the work. So, as I said, I get really worried when council were having expenditure into thinking that they need to have EV vehicles and then go, well, we don't have the infrastructure, so then we're spending more money or getting more grants to install infrastructure and etc., so that they can then charge their EV vehicles. So is that the best use of our money, given that an EV vehicle is not cheap to start with? Buy a hybrid vehicle and you'd have this not the same result, but a very similar outcome for a lot less money. So I think that's where I'm concerned in where council was actually spending the money and what they're really going to achieve. Because as I said earlier on, the council patting its back, thinking that yes, we're trying to achieve net zero. Meanwhile, the ratepayers are saying, well, we can't have everything that you want, but you're making us pay for what you want to be able to achieve that. It's not. I just think it's ridiculous politics to be doing it. So, because the council achieving net zero is going to be an eyedropper value into the whole world of net zero. It's not going to achieve nothing. You only need one volcano to erupt and you've just destroyed the whole ratio of it. So it's as simple as that.
Yeah. And Martin, your thoughts in regards to that, this whole transition and impacts on councils and looking to, pursue this path along with state and federal in regards to net zero, renewables push and all that, those sort of policies around that. Where do you see sort of council sitting in that, and should council spend regardless of what it might cost the ratepayer to pursue those?
Well, I suppose thinking about whether council should be involved, you've got to look at the overall context. And in terms of your description, calling it a transition, can maybe think in terms of future transition, but at the moment, globally, there is no transition whatsoever. The burning of fossil fuels and the overall energy mix globally, it's the CO2 emissions are not going backwards, and they never have. Certainly, globally, increase in CO2 emissions has been held back by renewables. That's true, but there's no transition globally at this stage. Also, so the other thing is that so far we have been lucky. If you look at the predictions from the 1990s through to today, there were many dire predictions for 2025, and so far we have been very fortunate in that we've dodged a bullet at this point. Nevertheless, as individuals, aside from council, we're all spending a lot of money. We're paying a lot on our electricity bills for carbon reduction, but unfortunately what we're doing is unaffordable on electricity bills. So a lot of what's happening now is going into the federal budget as federal expenditure that we don't even see on our bills. The batteries, for example, are being funded off to the side, and we don't even see the cost of those in our bills. So we're paying through tax, we're paying through bills. This is federal policy, which is the way it is. And it's not really the role of council to get involved in that. Council should just stick to what it's doing and act sustainably, but in a cost-neutral way.
Yeah, so I guess the concept of buying much more expensive vehicles for council, whether it be to pursue this goal, kind of talks into that, I'd imagine. So obviously, if you've got the opportunity to buy a fleet of vehicles, say 10 that were, your old combustion or hybrid, at a much cheaper cost than full electric, that would be, I guess, be seen as not responsible for the ratepayer. Then I guess.
Well, there can be a lot of ways where you can take actions which are worth doing and they don't have to cost the council money. Hybrid vehicles might stack up reasonably well, and a lot of councils are using hybrid vehicles, and there could be a business case to actually save money on fuel using those. So that's the sort of thing you'd look at.
Yeah. And Darren, yourself on that same topic?
Look, it's not a policy I've led with, but it's, I'm certainly not a supporter of, a net zero transition. Look, it's in the global context, as others have mentioned, I mean, Australia's emissions are 1%. So even if we just disappeared off the planet, we're not really going to move the dial. And why would we, create a local crisis to essentially achieve nothing? There are. I'm not to say that we shouldn't be caring for the planet in various other ways. Pesticides, runoffs, toxic, sort of chemicals in use in various places. I mean, we should be good stewards of the environment that we're in. And particularly in Southward, we've been blessed with a pristine sort of farming rural land, which needs to be preserved. To I guess spend ratepayer funds on net zero transition when the council already has far bigger problems, just doesn't seem to make any sense. Doesn't stack up. And at the end of the day would achieve nothing. So it's certainly not something I would be supporting, given the opportunity.
Yeah, and now I guess talking into some of those polarizing topics, obviously one big one is where today is September 3, so it's National Flag Day, so it's commemorating the Australian flag, and the first time it was actually flown in 1901. And talking into, I guess, this idea about being proud to be Australian and fly the Australian flag and even celebrate Australia Day and things like Anzac Day. What are your thoughts, Mark, around some of the polarising issues that councils got involved in regards to those things? Do you think do you think it's a role for council to facilitate the kind of patriotism into the nation? And you're just going to unmute you there because I had you on mute. There we go.
She became a citizen. She wanted to receive her citizenship on Australia Day, a day that we are all united together under one flag. But she couldn't do so because she was permitted to. She was forbidden to. So Australia Day is for we all want to unite under one flag, and that Australia Day is celebrated particularly by the older generation, and it's and to the council. This is a federal issue, not a matter for the council to do. Let them focus on the roads, rates, and rubbish, not on federal issues. So I'm upset about that. Obviously our flag is important, and people have died under that flag. Look at the flag. And we've these matters are important, and they shouldn't. Councils can stay right out of them.
Mm-hmm. Richard, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, having had my family's been here for 176 years, so since 1849, and they didn't come here through persecution or anything like that. My was a great grandfather jumped on a boat in Tungamundi in Germany to come out here for a new life, settled in Hahndorf, basically. Owned land around Hahndorf before moving out towards Harrogate and deciding to be a farmer, etc. And they come out here for a new life, and they worked hard and helped build the country. They didn't come here to, they built schools, they built churches, etc. I am a Lutheran, so and still worship in the church where they first. Well, it's not their first church; they have built a new one since. Where they started at Springhead, but they became part of Australia, and they worked for Australia and the flag that we have, and they were proud to do so. And so I find it very. I would say that I'm offended by the behaviour at the moment towards the flag and towards the patriotism. So apparently, it seems like it's wrong to be patriotic, and I don't understand that because I'm Australian, a fifth generation as such, and and that's the flag that I am. I don't wave a German flag. Yes, it's my history, but I don't sit here with a German flag. I'm Australian with an Australian flag. And so I find it quite disappointing that a council is getting into this sort of politics, that it doesn't need to be in this sort of politics. It's not a local council issue, and it's going to be a federal issue or whatever, but that's not what local politics is all about. Local government's all about. Local government is about looking after its ratepayers, not trying to to me, it creates division. It doesn't create unity in what they're trying to do. And that's the disappointing part. And we shouldn't be doing that. We should be. It's the one national day that we have, and we should be proud to be in the best country in the world. And I've travelled around the world. It is the best country in the world. It's unique, and we should be celebrating it.
Yeah, Martin, your thoughts on that topic?
You'd look at, I think, similar lines. I guess the date of Australia Day, the issue around that is the fact that it's connected with essentially the formal British arrival in Australia, and one of the reasons that I think it's still worth celebrating on the day is because it's the institutions that we inherited from Britain that's made Australia one of the safest and most prosperous places in the world. And I think we need to acknowledge those civic structures and those traditions that have given us that that benefit. So no, I don't have any issue. I think we should be celebrating it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, fair enough. And Darren, I don't believe, because I know that I did follow the topic quite heavily in Adelaide Hills Council, but I don't think Mount Barker had a similar issue. But I wonder if you had thoughts in relation to that topic, though.
Actually, they did. They did have similar issues and similar pushback from one of the councillors in Australia Day this year in 2025. Yeah, so look, I believe the council should be honouring Australia Day, and look, it's as plain and simple as that. Australia is our history, our patriotism is important. It's being eroded at all levels in our youth, and to the point where you'd have to wonder whether our youth would actually go and fight for this country if the opportunity came. And it's something that we need to return to, that honouring of history. They say those who don't know their history are destined to repeat it. So it's part of our heritage. It needs to be preserved. We should be standing proud and flying that flag. Taking a stronger stance on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, guys, I mean, we've gone for a little while. We've covered quite a bit. I just wanted to give you the sort of last opportunity, and this is always that funny question that people kind of balk at. But Mark, why should people in the Adelaide Hills vote for you above others that might be putting the hat up to be candidates? And obviously, what's your main sort of hope to achieve? What's going to be the difference?
First of all, I've got a proven record in financial prudence and common sense, and we do have a financial issue, and I believe that I will work towards it and will understand it and work towards getting that balance sheet and profit and loss back in order. The second thing is, some of my basic issues is what I believe that the people of this area, and as I'm walking around the traps and talking to people, I believe that those issues are issues that people want addressed. I'm meeting a group of ratepayers that are upset. Some of them are a little bit furious that that they want transparency. They want their core priorities to be on essential services for ratepayers. They're looking for responsible and being cooperative, and proper decision making. So I think that I have and also I've finished my working life, and I have the time, and I have the experience that I can bring to the table. I believe it's going to take a full-time job to do this, and so that's what I'm bringing to the table, and I hope the ratepayers see it that way.
Yeah, Mark. Richard, same for yourself.
Yeah, look, mine comes from a long family history in the hills, and I've seen the changes that have been happening in the hills. Some for the better, some for the worse, and it seems to be heading a bit in the worst at the moment. But I have a very practical approach to how I deal with things, and I'm quite willing to consider the other side. I'm willing to listen to people. I've learnt over my time in their advocacy that there's no point just talking. You do need to listen to what people are saying. and form your opinions accordingly. So I have a track record in governance, and I'm very strong on constitutions and how organisations are run. I've certainly been in the leadership. I've certainly done the media. I've certainly been involved in strategic planning, and I love the Adelaide Hills. This is where I've grown up, and this is my place. And I want to see everybody have the same feeling that they love to live in the Adelaide Hills, and they're quite happy to tell anybody that it's the best place in the world to be living is the Adelaide Hills. And so I'm hoping that people want to support what we've already seen. We see what the issues are now, and with councils, people just want core services done, and that's what I hope to achieve. Is let's get back on track and make this the place that people are proud to live.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Martin, how about yourself?
Yeah, I guess two things. I know that if council was strong enough to say the rates have to be held at CPI, there shall be no deficit, and that there will be a debt reduction program. The role of council is to be strong enough and say to the CEO, that's what it is, you make it work. Rather than what always happens is the council staff tell councillors how difficult things are and this is what we have to do. I think it's the reverse. The council ought to be telling the staff what's going to happen. But second to that, having closely looked at a few of the programs and policies, as well as saying that, I'd also be prepared to say, well, here are areas where things can be improved financially and the ratepayers are not going to notice any difference at all. These are areas where focus can be shifted into core business and we can save a lot of money. So I'm prepared to both say what needs to be done, but also offer suggestions.
Yeah, excellent. And Darren, yourself?
Yeah. So look, I'm a good listener. I'm pragmatic. I'm stubborn when I need to be. When things, you need to stand your ground. Look, I have a long history in this region, and I have a passion for protecting it. Look, I have a desire to represent South Ward and the uniqueness of it, and work through the very practical issues that the council faces, and do the best for the ward. So look, I bring obviously business experience to the table as well. Very clear communication, a clear voice, and so I believe that I'll serve the region well.
Yeah, no worries. And so, lastly, what if people are interested and they're looking to obviously turn up, vote for you, Mark? What is the what does the ballot look like for you? What are you recommending to people that are looking to vote for you?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
On the ballot, obviously. What do you listed on the ballot, and how do you want people to vote?
Obviously, I'm very keen for myself to get up. So I'd like number one on myself. I'll also, if people, I'd like them also to consider putting James Saddle on as number two, and from there on down after that, they can do what they like. But I believe I'd like you to be number one.
Richard, simple, bit of a crazy question, but just let people know.
I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't say, I want the number one vote, and so my number two is Martin as well, and then the preferences after that. I think it is better for people to do preferences, not just because you only really need to mark one or two. on the ballot sheet because there's two candidates because there's only 2 positions available. But it'd be better if people do number more than that because it could come down to preferences as to who gets in or not. So beyond that, there's a couple probably here in the Northern Hills that would probably put as my 3 and 4, and after that it's up to them. So
yeah, and so Martin, I suppose it'll be the same for you then.
Yeah, my how to vote is after myself is Richard as number 2, and there are a couple of other candidates who share similar concerns strongly about the financial side of things. So they would be a valuable 3 or 4. People can obviously work that out from the candidate statements. The only thing I was a bit disappointed about with some of the other candidates on the strong financial side, which is good, was that they didn't mention some of the other concerns around Australia Day and identity politics and things, which have been a bit of a thorn in council side for a while. But yeah, that's where I see it.
Yep, no worries. And obviously, Darren, you'll be looking to put yourself as number 1. That goes without saying. Is there any recommendations? Any recommendations to the community about someone else, or it's pretty much Darren Kelly and that's it?
It's pretty much that's it. Number 1 for Darren, and he can leave the other boxes blank. There's only 1 seat or 1 vacancy in the ward, so unless you want your vote to go to Green or other causes, we'll just a 1 for Darren will do the job.
Sounds great. Well, that's about it, guys. That's a bit of a wrap, unless anybody wanted to finish on anything else. But I think we covered a few things, unless people felt that, and by all means put your hand up, felt that something needed to be talked into a bit more detail. But are you comfortable where everything that was discussed?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm pretty comfortable. Yeah.
All right. Well, all I can say is good luck on the day to all of you. And just to reiterate that anybody watching, if any of the other candidates wanted the opportunity to appear and talk about similar things that we discussed here, the platform is open. You can reach out to me. Obviously, the Adelaide Hills Council Action Group reached out to be able to make contact with these 4 chaps. So, wishing all the best. And you don't have to hang around, but I normally finish a stream with a bit of a tune, and this one today is out of the Gospel of Matthew, sung in blues, and it's called King on the Cross. So by all means, if you want to hang around, you can. If not, feel free to have an amazing day. All right, guys, take care.
thanks, Mark.
Right,
Thank
cheers.
you, Darren.
They stripped him bare and crowned his brow with thorns and spite. They mocked him loud. A reed in hand, a robe of shame. They bowed in jest to the risen name. They led him out through the city's cry to a hill where thieves were left to die. Nailed through flesh, the sky turned gray, and love hung still in the heat of day. He was a king on a cross, broken and bruised. No sword, no fight, just blood that fused. The wrath of sin and the mercy wide, in the torn veil and the pierced side. They cast their lots at the foot of grace, while heaven wept at the holy face. One thief cursed, one saw the light, and found a door in his final night. He cried aloud, why am I forsaken? As the earth shook and the stones were shaking, the temple split, the dead stood still, for the Lamb had climbed Golgotha's hill. He was a king on a cross, broken and bruised. No sword, no fight, just blood that fused. The wrath of sin and the mercy white, in the torn veil and the pierced side. And a soldier stood in the crimson flood, said, truly this was the Son of God.